Culturally is virtual programming centered on celebrating, uplifting, and educating the Wildcat community through the lens of communities of color connected or affiliated with Kansas State University.
All right, let's get started, you all. So my name is Michael Leverett. I graduated with a degree in social sciences and a minor in American ethnic studies in fall of 2019. Oftentimes, being a Black student here on campus, you quickly learn how protest and advocacy has shaped this campus that we walked on every day. Being a previous member of the Black Student Union, you hear stories about previous BSU members who blazed the trail and set the groundwork with blood, sweat, and tears so that we can enjoy the luxuries that we enjoy today. The Alumni Association is kicking off a series of virtual programming called K-State Culturally. Today, we are starting an interview series about protest and advocacy with alumni in partnership with the K-State Black Student Union. Today, I am interviewing John Coburn, Carrie Coburn, and Janice D. White. John graduated from K-State in marketing in 1985. Ms. Carrie graduated from Kansas KU with a degree in liberal arts and sciences in 1984. And Ms. Janice graduated from Kansas State with a business degree in marketing in 1989. And those are our interviewees, for the evening this morning. And let's just kind of get kicked off with the first question. How and why did you all get involved here at K-State?
Well, I'll go ahead and take that, and then I know Janice and Carrie will follow. Why did we get involved? Well, Carrie and I have had conversations about giving back to the university, and it's just important that the university helped us, and it helped my sister. It helped when I first came to K-State. It helped a friend of mine. We came together, but now it's time to give back and to help others so that they can be successful and help this nation.
Thanks, John. At the University of Kansas, the reality is Kansas life is for all students, not just for some students. And I was a member of the Black Student Union as well. And we realized that there were groups within the union that received funding for participating in community service projects or philanthropies. And for some reason, the Black Student Union was not recognized as an organized group, even though it on the roster, quote unquote. However, we were not receiving the benefit of the fundings. So we actually took issue with that and had a protest march on campus where we had signs, we had on our Black Student Union shirts, and we demanded to be treated equally. And we were ultimately received that funding, but we were just as focused on helping our community as anyone else. But being a member of a university, being a student, that is a community in and of itself. So how could you recognize some students and not all students?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess for me, I arrived at K-State in '87, and I was already involved from KU. So I was already involved there. So it just seemed natural that once I got to K-State that I would continue my involvement. And I didn't know anybody when I got there. So a way for me to meet people was to get involved.
And that's a perfect segue into my next question. My next question is, can you talk about those relationships and those connections that you all created through these protest and advocacy spaces, whether that's through BSU or just connecting with like-minded individuals and advocating for things that you believe in?
Well, I guess I can start. I can almost say the moment that I set foot on campus, I met Dr. Ann Butler. She and I were in the same sorority. I didn't know that. I just happened to go to a Greek picnic, and from there, she approached me, and we were in the same sorority, so we just made an instant connection. And from that moment, I told my brother, I said, I stuck to her like glue. if I needed anything, if I had any questions about anything, I stuck to her like glue. And she never seemed to be bothered by it. But yeah, so she was the first person I met, and even after I graduated, we stayed in contact.
Well, like Janice, I too am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, and at KU, the Black fraternities and sororities, we banded together. Out of 25,000 students, there were fewer than 900 students that were African American, and so we considered ourselves an entire family, if you will. And so we recognized that if one voice was heard, all of our voices were heard. And so I think it is important to find people that are like-minded. The reality is we're all part of a group, whether it's the living community that we're in, if it's a fraternity or a sorority that we're in, a special interest group, a supportive group like Black Student Union. Take full advantage of that. Take advantage of what professors have to offer, teachers, assistants have to offer. Again, that's all part of the same community. And sometimes those kind of like in Janice's situation where someone will reach out to us, and sometimes there's not. And we have to kind of take a step out there and just take a chance and say, hey, I see you're attending whatever meeting. I'd like to talk to you about X, and just kind of put ourselves out there. I applaud Janice for what she did, for actually taking action. I have been in situations where people have approached me in the past when I was younger, and I was intimidated and didn't leverage the relationship. And I would say, that's kind of nonsense, right? Just go for it and take a full advantage of whomever you come in contact with.
And likewise, leveraging off of what Janice and Carrie said, I use my resources as well. Verl Schweitzer was a great help. He was a Kappa, I was an Alpha, but I kept up with Verl. Burnell Ramsey, he was a fraternity brother when I was down there, and even before I pledged, I just stuck with him. All the resources on campus, whether it was McCain Auditorium to go to I was talking to Carrie that we went to some plays, and I needed tutoring, so I used that. I mean, anything that was available on campus, I just went for it, and I just utilized every aspect that I could.
Thank you. So John, I saw that you wrote an article about belonging. Mm-hmm. And reading throughout the article, it kind of made me think about the retention rate for Black students here at K-State, or more specifically, the retention rate for Black male students here at K-State. Traditionally, the retention rate for Black male students have been less than like 11%. Can you talk about maybe more strategies for students to advocate for themselves when they feel like they are lacking that sense of belonging in a spaces that they're in, or just touch on any aspect that you're willing to touch on that could help our students, or maybe some gems to give tips to our administrators on creating a safe space of belonging for our students?
Well, the good thing is that you're on a university campus. And so I was talking to Carrie about this last night, and the university campus is more almost like its own country. You've got your president, you've got your vice president. And so at least I feel like, and I've had an opportunity to talk with the president, that there is caring there and there is compassion there. Now, being the president of a large university, he may not see everything, or he may not know everything that's going on if his advisors don't tell him. So as a student, you've got to if you've got something that you're concerned about or something that you want to try, now's the opportunity to do that, because you got the resources. When you get out into the real world, you may not have that. We're working with a lot of organizations here in town as well as in St. Louis. I'm working with Emotep on your campus and the Call Me Misters, just to make sure that the students understand that we care about them. We want them to do their very best, but at the same time, they have to be able to advocate for themselves. It's always good to do it in numbers, but if you see from my profile, I had a couple of situations where I just went for it. I had an issue, and I didn't stop to talk to somebody in the dorm, or I just went straight to the president's office, sat in the president's office and said, hey, I got this issue. How can we solve this? And they helped me at that time. That was Dwayne Acker during that time. So, there are times that you have to advocate for yourself. I would certainly do that. And because, we all belong, whether there's certain people that don't want us to belong or not. The university accepted us. We got our acceptance letter, and we belong. And so it's just that confidence. I'm going to keep walking with my head up. Dr. King talked about that. If you're a sanitation worker, he said, be the best sanitation worker that you can be. If you're a student, be the best student that you can be. Walk with your head high and do your very best, because there are always going to be those challenges out there. People may not like you. They may not like the way you dress, or may not like the way you look. Me, I don't care. I belong, and I'm going to do my best to shine.
And if I could piggyback on what John just said, if that's okay, Michael. To John's point, the reality is everyone's a member of the university, right? That affords you rights and privileges. There are programming, there are things that are offered that are free of charge. It's really a matter of taking the time to understand what's available to me as a student and taking advantage of that. Back in the day when I was a student, we didn't have the internet. All right, now, watch it. Don't say I'm old. But we didn't have the internet. And so the reality is in today's time, information is more readily available. And with the support of Dr. Jessica Elmore, Dr. Choma, and others, there are people right there on campus that want to provide support. Our oldest daughter for Johnny Me, Allison, graduated from Kansas State University as well. And sometimes she felt isolated. And so we did encourage her to take the step forward to try to reach out to others and to recognize that she automatically belongs by default. Mm-hmm. So no need to prove it. Like John said, you got your letter of acceptance, you're in. Use it.
I like the automatic by default sense of belonging, because especially as a student, seeing the turbulence of being a Black student on Kent State. And I guess this is a good question to go into, Ms. Carey. On your profile, I saw that you was involved in student government. And as a previous student who was involved in student government, the area can be very challenging for students of color, specifically Black students who want to make a change on campus, especially seeing that student government is kind of the organization that has university's ear, or seems as the go-to organization to make a change on campus. Can you talk about your experiences with the person that you helped run the student government campaign, or just your experience with student government in general, so that students can kind of draw parallels to themselves on what SGA was back then, what it is now, and hopefully we can strategize, and this will help move forward of how we can make SGA a better organization and more accepting of all individuals moving forward.
Okay. Well, it's kind of interesting as we think about what's happening today in our nation with regard to the right to vote and exercising our right to vote, and how there is redistricting going on and all that kind of thing to sort of keep people out. We had that same experience on campus at the University of Kansas as it pertains to student government. There were a lot of rules in place, a lot of procedures and protocols. And basically, in a nutshell, what it boiled down to is they said that we, the Black Student Union, did not qualify to have a seat on student government. Mm-hmm. And so we said, okay, so we came together and said, let's figure out another way to get in there. And they also said we were too small. So there were all these different stipulations, but we recognized that as Black fraternities and sororities, we had a pretty good number. And so we came to a meeting and we said, we want to apply for the one seat that is left open. And we want someone from a Black fraternity or sorority to occupy that seat and represent us as a collective. The woman that was in charge at the time said, that's not fair. This was only supposed to be one group. You guys are 9 groups. We said, no, we're one family. We're the Black Student Union. We may wear different colors, pink and green, red, white, etc., but we're all one, and all of our faces are brown or Black. So we're one group. So the bottom line here, Michael, is that we didn't say no. We didn't allow for them to tell us no, I should say. We pushed forward, and do you know we secured that seat?
Yes, ma'am.
Became a voting member, and we made sure to always show up at the student government meetings, and we sat in the back. That's where the most room was, and if there was no room for us to sit, we stood there. And we always wore our fraternity sororities colors to let the persons know that we stood behind our person. He was our person of choice. He represented us, and he had our vote, and we expected him to have a vote. So he had a seat at the table. Bottom line, understand what the no means, and then figure out a way to kind of get around it in an ethical manner, and demonstrate that you do indeed add value. And we told them that in order for the Black voice to be heard, since we in fraternities and sororities represented, quote unquote, the leadership of the Black students, that we would make sure that the voices were collected, and we would catalog them, provide that to our person who was our representative, so that the Black voice could indeed be heard.
Thank you for sharing that very empowering story. So with that, and understanding all of the stresses and the tears that comes with being a student leader, student activist, because it seems like your job never stops being a student leader on campus. Can you talk about ways, and this is a question for all of you all, ways that you took care of yourself when you was a 20-year-old in college, the meal plan, trying to, eat right, I guess, eat healthier, trying to make sure that you ate all of your meals when you have 5 classes, 3 organizations, and then you're a leader, you're sit on the exec board of, maybe 3. So you're in meetings all day, you're eating all day, sorry, not eating all day, you're in classes all day and fellowshipping with students all day and advocating for those students. Can you talk about ways that you took care of yourself and make sure that you graduated?
Janice, I want you to go ahead and take that question because I want you to talk about the group that you founded and how you balanced all that at Kansas State.
Okay. Well, our meal plan was totally different than it is now. So we had 3 square meals and I think 2 on the weekend. So it was, I arrived at all of those. But as far as, I guess, connecting with or taking care of myself, again, I found a mentor. And I stuck to her like I think that's really important. And what I mean by mentor, not just that we had being in a sorority together as a common factor, but also I knew that Dr. Butler would speak for me, and not just me personally, but speak for me when I wasn't around, that she would advocate for me. And I think that's important for a mentor, not just somebody that you have something in common with, but somebody that is going to speak for you. You may not be around, but she is going to advocate and speak for you. So I took care of myself that way by connecting with someone. And then the group that I founded was a business group. It was called Minority Business Students in Action. I connected with a professor in the College of Business, Dr. Kay Stewart. Boy, you have to go back and really remember things. Dr. Kay, she was our sponsor for the group. We pulled the group together, and back then I really didn't think it was difficult to manage that with classwork. I just, I guess maybe I was just used to doing that. It didn't seem like it was a big challenge at all. I don't know.
What's the name of your group today, Janice?
Oh, it's called they changed the name. It's called the Multicultural Business Students Association, I believe. Yeah, it's Multicultural Business Students.
Nice.
Yeah, but it stemmed from Minority Business Students in Action. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. And I like to kind of piggyback on what she was saying as well. Yeah, I made sure I made all the meal plans now. That's for sure. And then when I talked to Janice about K-State, I was an RA for 3 years. And so I had that responsibility as well. But I told Janice that would be a great opportunity for her to do that same thing. So she ended up doing that as well. And, I know that it can be very difficult sometimes to get into those positions, but you have to keep trying and keep striving and keep talking to people. I got to know my dorm director and got to know her really well, that when that opening came, and then I got to know the RA on the floor really well. And when that opening came, they came to me and they were like, hey, I think you should apply for this. And so, again, it's taking advantage of all those opportunities anybody that you meet, just have a discussion with them. Just say hello to them. You never know what might become of that opportunity.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
being an RA, I'll just say this. I was kind of used to being the only one. So I was the only African-American female that I can remember. But I remember before school started, we all got together, and it was the dorm directors and the RAs. And I met a dorm director. She was the dorm director of Smurthwaite. I think that's how you pronounce it. And so I met her, and she helped me later on that year that I was an RA, put together a dinner, a soul food dinner. And so she was one of the people that helped me plan that. So it was just by us being in the room, saying hello, and we made a connection.
And talk a little bit more about that soul food dinner, will you? The ins and outs.
Yeah, well, that's what I called it. It was called a soul food dinner. And it wasn't something that I created. When I was at KU had a soul food dinner during Black History Month. And when I got to K-State, there wasn't anything like that. And again, I collaborated with, I think her name was Aloyce Mickens, the director of Smurthwaite. And I remember going to the director of food services, and we had to come up with a menu. So we sat down and we did that. And I was able to secure Dr. Barbara Ballard to be the speaker. And it was a really small event, but I understand now, I believe that there is a pretty large event that goes on now at K-State for Black History Month.
Yeah, we have a series of events.
It was something that wasn't there that, that we were able to create.
So
and I didn't do it alone. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Could I piggyback on that question as well?
Ma'am.
Okay. What we did at KU when freshmen did a study group, and we called ourselves Double L. We had T-shirts made, we had a call sign, we had colors, the whole thing. And we were a group of freshmen that stayed together until we graduated. And we made sure that we were okay. We formulated our own study group just to make sure that we had the support that we needed. We also wanted to make sure that we had a way to sort of navigate campus. We ate meals together. We partied together on Fridays. We checked in with each other, went to church on Sunday. But the whole point here is we created our own support group. Some of us did not have enough money sometimes for meals, so we fed each other, right? Sometimes folks needed a ride home. There were John and Janice and I are from St. Louis, but we had members of our group that were from Kansas City. I had a car. So if somebody needed a ride to go see their mom, we took them home. We made sure that people had enough money to wash their clothes, because you had to pay for washers and dryers in the dorm, and we all lived in the dorm. We couldn't afford to live off campus at that time. And we made sure that we were all okay. I can remember getting a call in the middle of the night. Someone was not feeling well, and I took her down to the hospital there on campus because she didn't have a way to get there. But the bottom line is we created that family, and we ensured that we had what we needed and we were okay.
Thank you. The reason why I asked that question, because oftentimes student leaders, being myself, we find ourselves being burnt out because we are just the target people for the university when it comes to promotions and on paper material. They tend to reach out to the same student leaders. When it comes to speaking engagements, they tend to reach out to the same student leaders. When it comes to any just opportunity that one could elevate the university and the students, it tends to be the same couple of students that get these opportunities. Mm-hmm. And I can speak for myself, to be very exhausted, well, at least this is post-graduate me realizing this, because Ms. Jennings, kind of like you said, I have the same mindset. It felt natural, it felt normal, it felt used to be going all the time, from when I wake up until going to bed and realizing I missed a meal, or realizing I didn't check in with my parents, or realizing that I probably, didn't take as best care of myself that day. And thank you all for those responses, because I know a lot of students, especially student leaders, would take those responses and add it to their life. With that being said, can you all share like 1 to 2 takeaways that your student advocacy experience kind of helped shape your life? and ways that you're seeing it. So it's kind of a two-part question. So I repeat it. Can you all name ways that your student advocacy experience at K-State or KU shaped your values, shaped the things that you believe, or the way from these experiences?
If I could, I'll go first on that one. What it did for me, the wonderful thing about a university, about being there, is that it allows you to practice. Mm. It allows you to learn. And there are people there that will indeed provide support, and it prepares you for life after being a student. So what I gained through all of this relative to advocacy, et cetera, was that I learned to fail forward. I forgave myself. If I didn't hit a particular goal at the onset, it was still an opportunity to learn. And I didn't consider it that, oh, I'm not any good, I didn't make it, I didn't get it done. It was an opportunity to learn, and it now allowed me to fail forward. So what I mean by that is, by not hitting the goal at the onset, and one can consider that a failure, and I use air quotes on that, you just move on to the next thing. You apply what you learned from the past time you tried, apply it to the new thing that you're working on. That was a key takeaway for me, was learning how to fail forward and being okay with that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Janice, do you want to take it, and I'll follow up at the end?
I think for me, my experience has probably, oh boy.
Can I say something on your behalf, Janice?
Yes, thank you.
All right, because Janice tends to be a little quiet. What Miss Janice is not telling you guys is that she started her own nonprofit in Columbus, Ohio. She's actually the director of a leadership group for young women. And I want to say that because I love my sister-in-law very much. And as you can see, she's very quiet and reserved. And I just put myself out there. I'm talking all the time. And so it doesn't matter what type of personality one has, it's what's in your heart. Mm-hmm. And you heard Janice say when she left KU and came to K-State, she saw some things that she was missing, right? And she got it started. And there are still some things that she started back in the day that are still going on today at K-State. But Janice, I'm proud of you. I admire you. And I just want you guys to know she started her own nonprofit that helps young women to become leaders. So I would say that gave you the courage and the strength to do that. She's always been an advocate.
Yeah, I think too, I guess what I was trying to say, I couldn't really get it all together. Thank you for helping me. Mm-hmm. This has allowed me to give back too. So somebody gave to me, poured into me, and now I'm able to give back, use what I learned from my time at K-State and at KU, and pass it on, and don't hold back. Mm-hmm. Somebody is waiting for you to help them out.
And see, my experience on campus was a little different. I was talking with a friend of mine that graduated in 80, and I graduated in 85. I kind of left there with rose-colored glasses. For the most part, I was treated pretty well. Students, we treated each other well, whether it was black, white. I felt like we got along really well. And I kind of confirmed this with a friend of mine who's a Q. And he said, we didn't really have any strife, a lot of that strife like that. And I had some problem with professors. And, that's when I went to, sat in the president's office, or the other one, I just told the professor, look, I am who I am. I don't get this algebra. You got to help me. I'm paying for you to be here. And I've always had a big mouth, so I have no problem just telling people how I feel. But it wasn't until I left campus and I got to my first corporate job that I got when I was on campus. Like I said, I used all the resources. I think it's Holtz Hall, got the interview, got the job. But boy, that's when reality really set in, that you're black. And here's the expectation. And, oh, by the way, we don't really want you here. And so, but since you're here, this is how it's going to be. And so since that time, I've been on, and that was in 85, I've been on this advocacy change. Let's move it forward. And so when all these protests and everything started going on, I didn't have to try to figure out, well, what book do I read or what group do I work with? I just picked up the phone and said, hey, Shawnee's, You need us to come talk to you. You need us to talk with your students. I called the misters, call me misters on campus at K-State. Hey, you need me to do another presentation with you guys? So it's like Carrie said, when I'm moving forward in the corporate world and where I am now, that's when I started learning that, you know what, we really got to push forward and we really got to help others that are coming up to see this and to keep pushing forward, keep working hard, because I also see now as an opportunity, like I saw in '85, companies are really wanting to help. At least a lot of them are from what I've read. And if you put yourself in a position, because I read a book called Outliers, and it reminds me exactly of that. You put yourself in a position, more than likely you can get hired, have that opportunity, and then be able to give back and make change in the corporate perspective.
Thank you. So can we talk about, just take a time to reflect on some things that you all was doing here, walking K-State's and KU campuses when you all were students. Can you talk about things that you are now finally kind of seeing progression towards or completion even? For me, I think about the Multicultural Student Center here at K-State. And I just know how many student leaders or K-State alum was fighting for that Multicultural Student Center in years. Whether or not it looks like what we imagine, it's not the question, but the fact that it's there. And I know many other students before me was fighting for that. And that being an example, can you talk about other things that you all was fighting for, advocating for, pushing for, that you are now seeing come to completion or starting progress or somewhere getting done in the process?
Well, at the University of Kansas, what was successful in getting done, we recognized that our story was not being told. So again, having to fight for the Black Student Union to even have a place and funding like all the others. But what we were able to get accomplished was that now in the archives, our story is told. And there are actually photos there of members of our sorority, to include Janice, who you have here online here. And so we have, back in the day, sorority members were not, of Alpha Kappa Alpha, were not allowed to live on campus. And we weren't allowed to have a sorority house on campus. And so these women had to find another place to stay. And there are actually photos of that and information that's been archived now at the university on campus. We have been successful when our chapter, which is Delta Chapter at the University of Kansas, turned 100 years old. We actually had a bench that is set up on campus, and it says, from the members of Alpha Kappa Alpha, in order to recognize the Delta Chapter members. And we took photos there, and that's now also in the archives. That bench is there for students to sit on. And when they sit there, they'll know that it was an organization of color. And we talk about our history at the same time. So I think it's important, as we can see throughout history in general, in these United States, the plight and the forage of African Americans, that story has not been told. And so I'm proud to say that at the University of Kansas, our story is now being told.
Mm-hmm. And for me, it was just the Black professors that I was able to connect with. And I go back to Burnell was really, really helpful to me. And when I look at that, and now I look at who's on campus today, Dr. Elmore, Dr. Choma, we had a meeting in October. There are a lot of great professors, African American, but what I also would like to see more of and see more things happen is them moving up to some of the professorships and the dean, having those titles as well. I think that's important. I don't know how many deans that there are on campus, but I know that there can definitely be a few more to help with this ongoing process. And I think that's one thing that as students, you guys could hold the university's feet to the fire to advocate for more, professors of color as well as professors in even higher positions.
Thank you.
I think for me, I'm just thrilled that the business organization that I started is still in existence, even though the name has changed. It's still in existence, and it's moving forward. It's grown, obviously. I think that's something. If John hadn't called me and started asking me about my time at K-State, I had forgotten all about it. I had to really think about what was the name of that group. And just yesterday, I looked through an archive in the newspaper, and I saw that we had a meeting in October of 1988. So I wasn't crazy. I thought, well, maybe I could do that. But yes, and so to see that it's still going on is great. I love it.
Thank you for that. We really appreciate that, especially knowing students who took part of those organizations and knowing the enrichment that they had in their career field, and like you said, the community. We really appreciate the work that you all put in so that we could, walk the same campuses and have a little bit more luxuries that you all didn't have. We have one last final question, and this is a little bit more chill, I guess. So if you could leave student leaders now with the gym or with words of advice or advice that you was told, what would that be?
If I could start with that, I would say recognize that your passions and your dreams are legitimate, and that the roadmap that you set for yourself, be sure to follow it. And it's okay if you have to course correct along the way. The one thing we didn't talk about today is what we do professionally. And so you did mention, Michael, that I earned my bachelor's degree was in Spanish at the University of Kansas. And por esa razón, yo estudiaba en Guadalajara, Mexico. So I got to study in Mexico. I got to work in Puerto Rico. I think that's important. That's another thing, to take advantage of what's offered there. So the study abroad program made a huge difference in my career. I serve as a vice president at my company, and using advocacy, et cetera, on campus for to be family and others. And I do that in my job. And so I would just say, go for it. Realize that your dreams are legitimate. Your dreams for yourself are not too big. When John and I were first married, I still told John I'd like to be a vice president one day of a company. And he said, okay, let's go for it. And I sincerely appreciate his support. But just recognize that what you do matters. And one last thing, Michael, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you for what you're doing today. You're leveraging this whole virtual environment in order to get the message out and to your colleagues there, and you're there on campus. And so I'm proud of you, and I'm looking forward to what you do, and go forward. So thank you.
Oh, and can Mr. John Jennings, can you also, I apologize for not asking questions about the things that you are doing today. Can you talk a little bit more when you answer the last question about yourself and the things that you're currently doing? Thank you for that. And I really, really appreciate
it. Okay. And I'll close out.
All right. Well, I received a business administration degree in 89 from Kansas State in marketing. Again, I remember I told you I met Dr. Ann Butler. She was one of the first person I met, and she was in education. And so she told me in that same conversation when we met, you should be a teacher. And I didn't listen to her, and I went on, got my marketing degree, and now guess what I do? I'm a special ed teacher. I wish that she was alive for me to tell her that, you told me so. So I do that. And then also I am the executive director of a organization called The Journey of a Young Lady. It's a leadership organization, nonprofit. One thing I would just like to leave students with is find a mentor. Here I am 30 years later talking about a mentor. Stick to that mentor like glue. The mentor should be able to speak for you when you are not even around. And then also, I think it's important too to find not only a mentor but an ally. And the ally doesn't have to look like you. The ally, for me, I can think of Dr. Kay Stewart. So we don't look alike. She and I don't look alike, but she was an ally. So I could go to her and like a mentor, and she helped form the business group. So it's important to find a mentor and also have some allies too.
And for me, just talking about what I would leave with the students is that, there's a lot of strife going on right now, a lot of civil unrest. But as Carrie talked about, when you're able to travel, and we lived in for 3 years, it's people of brown skin and black, they're treated differently, totally differently than what I've ever been treated in the United States. And so, even when we went to Canada last year, it's a distinct difference. And so I would say that even though people may treat you differently here in the United States, give yourself an opportunity to travel and see how people treat you in a much more respectful way, even if it's just going into Canada or if it's going to, Africa or going to France. They treat you totally differently. You're a respected person. And that's what I want to leave with the students. That, hey, you are somebody. You do belong, whether people say you don't belong or even if they don't say it, even if they perceive that you don't belong, you belong. And other countries, other people, and even like Janice said, they don't have to be the same color. Dr. King even talked about that. Back when he was doing the movement, people wanted to wipe out all the white people. We don't want the white people in our group. We don't want white people in SCLC. Well, Dr. King was totally against that because there are, we're trying to become a unity, trying to create unity and trying to create this society that is equitable. We need everybody to support one another. So I would definitely leave you with that you matter and that you do belong. I'm in education as well. I graduated in marketing in '85. I worked for a Fortune 50 company for 11 plus years. And then I decided to move into education. So I was a school principal, assistant principal, and now I'm a data coach. And I work for a company here in Cincinnati.
If I could add one more thing, I'll just make this really quick. Also, the three of us have, with whether it's master's degrees, other certifications or designations, learning never stops. Mm-hmm. Life is a journey. Learning never stops. So what you have there from a university perspective actually prepares you for lifelong learning, which you will definitely need as you move forward in your careers. And in order to stay ahead, the more you know, the more solidified you'll be in your role, whatever that role is in your particular field of employment. So continue to move forward with your education.
And Michael, I do, like Carrie said, I am very proud of you. I want to thank you for being a part of this. You're still giving back, man. Even though you graduated, they're still using your face.
That's right.
So that's all good. But, we talked about I want to kind of piggyback on one thing. Yeah. You can take care of yourself. That's Maslow's hierarchy of, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Talked about taking care of yourself. So you have to, no matter what it is, exercise or, basketball, whatever you like to do, just do some things that are fun for yourself. Take care of yourself. That's the number one important thing, to do that. And social emotionally as well. If you got some social emotional thing, don't be afraid to go ask for help. Don't be afraid to use, it was Levine back then. I don't know what it is today, but Levine Health Center, that was on campus. But, just if you feel like you're having some social emotional concern, go get some help. It's okay. If you need somebody to talk to, it's okay. And I'll leave you with this. We had a student that Carrie and I work with, and, he's struggling making that transition from being in an all-minority school to being at a predominantly white university to now being in the corporate world. And, he's struggling with that. And we've talked about getting some help, just being able to reach out. I think that's very important.
Thank you for that. And I want to thank you all for this interview, for being the first interviewees of this series that we're doing. And I want to thank the Alumni Association. I want to thank Dr. Elmore. And also, you can follow the K-State Alumni Association at K-State Alumni on IG, on Instagram and Twitter. And it's K-State Alumni Association on Facebook. And also, this interview will be uploaded on the K-State Black Student Union's Instagram page. And you can follow the K-State Black Student Union on Instagram at KSU. Again, it's KSU BSU on Instagram. And again, I want to thank everybody for coming at 9 o'clock this morning and having this interview and sharing all these gems, because I know all the students are really going to take and appreciate this. So thank you all for the work and the blood, sweat, and tears that you all put into our campuses over the years. We really, 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 really appreciate it.
Michael, thank you too. Yep, I'm proud of you too.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.